All right. Welcome, Cristina and Jacqui. Thank you so much for talking to me about your amazing podcast. So the first question is, what is SHeCOMMERCE and what is the podcast about? And really, what inspired you to start it?
I think for us, SHeCOMMERCE is about balancing the she with the business side and having those real conversations about, what actually is happening in the industry, but also like, what is the impact that that's having on women and women leaders and building a future path for, women leaders more broadly. So for us, their podcasts may seem like glamorous, but there's a ton of work that goes into like the day-to-day and what it takes behind the scenes. I think it boiled down to like having that commitment to do this and being consistent about that. But also, if you're going to do it with someone else, there needs to be a chemistry there, like something that's going to be relatable and that you want to work together and have these conversations and be really clear on what is our mission and what is be intentional about everything that we're doing. And I think, while Jacqui and I do debate and differ in our perspectives, we have a shared point of view and we trust each other. And I think that's the foundation for what we've built here and what we're building. And then just thinking through, again, with intention, how to operate it and that willingness to keep it going in addition to everything else we have going on in our very full lives, right, with careers and families.
How did you guys meet and how did you decide to do this?
The matchmaker in this whole scenario is, of course, the CPG guys.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Peter, as you may know, Melissa, Peter and I used to work quite closely together. We're in different departments now, but work quite closely together. And Peter introduced us via the Cornell executive education route. We met in 2024, and Peter said to me on the way down, "There's this lady. She's a really good friend of mine. I think you two will hit it off. You're both sassy." And who knew? He was right. We met, Melissa and I met, and then we got off to a great start and we had a great conversation, great chats. And then Cristina came over to London a couple of months later and I said, "Oh my gosh, if you're here, let's have dinner, let's chat." And it was just, there was no stop, there was no gap, there was no awkward pause. I mean, again, both of us are talkers, so that was never going to be a likely scenario. And we just got on like a house on fire.
Credit to Peter then for putting two amazing women together and encouraging you to create a podcast. So kudos to those guys. So speaking of, you kind of mentioned this, Cristina, about the work it goes into creating a podcast, which someone asked me about this one time and I was like, that just sounds like so much work. What does it take to get something like this off the ground? And what is like unexpected?
Well, it's a lot of coordination, right? We obviously, Jacqui and I are in different time zones completely. So it's either late night or early morning, text, emails, and a shared belief in the idea, because that's what gives us that conviction and passion to do this and makes it fun. Like we definitely appreciate and all the support from like Jacqui just mentioned, our good friends, both Peter and Sri. They were incredibly supportive from day one, gave us a ton of, they're our podcast mentors and inspiration, they're the gurus, if you will. But yeah, like you mentioned, we both have our day jobs. So, we had to align early on like, what did we want this to be? We didn't just say, "Oh, here's a great idea, let's hit record." We were like, what's the brand? Who's the audience? What's the tone? What's the format? Like, what's the guest profile? Like, what's the flow that can be repeatable and interesting? And what are those conversations? And, we really believed that what we were building needed to exist. So we wanted to be really intentional about everything that we did. So we spent more months between those Prosecco's in London that Jacqui mentioned up until we launched our first episode in mid-November of last year. Planning, right? And thinking about that calendar and the guest coordination, and really just continuing to build on our chemistry.
And, you also have to, and exactly as Cristina said, we both have full-time jobs. So it's also that really careful balance of, and scheduling of other people's calendars as well as ours, and making sure everything fits in neatly. It's a masterclass of project management, really.
Something that we all have to hone our skills on. That's what we have to do every day. So
absolutely. Right. And the thing too, Melissa, is that we didn't want to have a podcast that's just about commerce, right? Because there are quite a few out there. We really wanted to have one that was intentional around women and creating a path for women to talk about their experiences within commerce, but also talk about their experiences as women in the workplace, and we try not to take ourselves too seriously. You will frequently hear Cristina just about starting to sing something or the other every episode. We have a lot of laughing, a lot of banter. It's keeping it light and friendly, but it's kind of like the vibe we were going for is, let's talk about the important stuff, but let's talk about it like we're sitting around having a drink and chatting, as opposed to, I'm an interviewer, you're an interviewee. Let's have a serious interview,
Yeah, and Jacqui and I talked a lot about it because obviously there's no shortage of podcasts, right? But what that gap that we were filling was really around authenticity. And, while we're very interested in talking about retail media and what's happening in the industry and omni-commerce, we're just as interested in talking about like the day-to-day, right? The stereotypes, the work-life imbalance, the kind of the messiness behind the scenes and the unseen decisions that leaders such as yourself have made and what pivots and all that. So, that's really the niche we're focused on.
You've had a couple of these under your belt. You've talked to a lot of women leaders. Are there any themes and insights or inspirational stories that kind of come to mind out of the interviews? In which episodes that we should be listening to? Well, all of them, obviously.
All of them.
I would say that from inspirationally, there were quite a few women, but for me, it was definitely you, Melissa, where you came back from a tough place physically and then created this phenomenon, because you basically did everything you said, or you did everything you told people to do on our podcast, and that's you took the risk, you made that leap of faith, and you did all of that at speed. And we're sitting back going, well, wow. I mean, if Melissa can do it, then, this is our inspiration. This is our sign that we should stop resting on our laurels and go for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I hope that I feel like if I'm able to do something like this, I really do feel like anybody could do it, to be honest. And I'm happy that if I was able to inspire someone, that's amazing. So,
yeah. I think a big thing that maybe surprised us is just, how some of these wonderfully, exceptional leaders talk about the paths they take, right? Like they were not mapped perfectly, right? They weren't perfectly linear. They made choices, they took risks as you did yourself. And most of the time, though, they said yes before they felt ready, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this is probably more heavily indexed on females, where we need to feel like we're 110% ready, check every box before we go for that, right? Before we raise our hand, before we're vocal about what we want. But I think that is something that stands out for both of us, just how these accomplished leaders have spoken so openly about some of that, self-doubt, the learning they needed to do in real time, and having imposter syndrome. And I think that's been really powerful for us to hear, and hopefully for our listeners, because I think it demystifies this idea of perfection, right? And like what success looks like. And, there is a role for humility and reflection, and not having all the answers. And that, that confidence that you see when they step onto a stage or do a podcast often doesn't always come as natural, but it's like built in practice, in motion, and not as much before it. So that's been great. And one other leader that you definitely have to listen to is Lauren Gruinski, who we had as our first official guest. And she's just an amazing person all around. To know her is really to love her. She's so sweet, but also just a phenomenal leader and force. We also met through this Cornell program, and through Peter. So again, matchmaker. But she had some early adversity in her life and had some, self-doubt. And she speaks very openly about what that taught her and how it fuels her now. And she's incredibly humble about, where she came from, how she got there, and where she is now. And she is definitely someone to continue watching.
What is your superpower and how has it helped you be successful?
My superpower is taking a lot of complexity and creating clarity, like lots of messy signals, being able to connect the dots between, people, data, insight, commerce, what's happening in the market and what that actually means. How do we translate that into, the so what, now what, and help lead through times of ambiguity, to be able to shape strategy, and to take those ideas that are smart but don't always get executed to becoming actual decisions that are going to get us closer to the outcomes that we're looking for.
I would say my superpower, is it superpower or my favorite thing to do is give me a great big ball of chaos, right? I love a big bowl of chaos. That messy ball of wool that you need to unravel and get back into a normal skein? Doing that, making sense of that chaos, unraveling and then making it nice and neat and tidy, that's something that I really enjoy. And doing that...
She likes me.
I mean, I wasn't going to say, but that's why. It's that, and also the people side of things. I'm energized by people, and I'm energized by connection, and I think that's the thing between both Cristina and myself. We're connectors. We're people, and the energy that we get from each other for this podcast is and the passion that we have for it too. That I think is our joined up superpower.
That definitely comes through. So loud and clear. And you must love our industry right now because it's full of chaos. So That's my next big question. So last question, start with you, Jacqui. What's the biggest challenge within commerce media right now? And is it something new or part of a bigger shift that's happening?
I would say from my perspective, it's definitely AI. I mean, we've heard so much about it, but of course we have, because it is just coming at us, at speed in so many different ways. And let's look at how a lot of the big tech have pivoted. And, yes, there have been some job losses, and those job losses have been a consequence of their investment into AI. But from my perspective, it's looking at not fearing AI, but looking at, okay, this is here and this is here to stay, and it's only going to get bigger and more complex and more inculcated into our everyday life and into our work life. How can we utilize this so that we own it and it does not own us? I would say that is the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, I agree with Jacqui. And I think it's just the fragmentation. The space is growing so fast, but I don't think measurement standards and, data integration and even just the decisions that come from all this have been able to keep up with that pace of change. So it's that pace of change and that there's the quantity of change that much. We haven't figured out retail media yet, right? Now this broader commerce media environment, throw in some AI and the complexity there and how that's continuing to flatten the funnel between discovery and conversion. All of that at once, I think it's a lot, right? So it's not new. It's just taking all these things, combining it at the same time, right? It's that changing the old playbook, but now, what does that mean for our day to day, and how do we keep up? If not even keep up, try to stay ahead of that change. I think that fragmentation and pace are the biggest challenges right now.
Well, it sounds like chaos. So Jacqui, you must be loving every second of it.
It's my happy place, Melissa.
Some people thrive and some people just, go the opposite direction. So it sounds like this is going to be a great year for you because we are sitting in a lot of change and pivots and all that follows. But Thank you both for really moving things forward for women in our industry and all your interesting conversations. I encourage everybody to listen to SHeCOMMERCE and really appreciate that you guys have brought this amazing podcast to market. Thank you.
Thank you for having
us.
It's been so much fun.